Our racers come from all kinds of backgrounds, but we know a type who really get the purpose of lemons, and those are the people whose families have raced for generations, like Mark Howard and his buzz-off racing BMW 3 Series?
Boring!
We know what you're thinking. An E46 BMW? How's that interesting? Well, this BMW runs a Chevy engine that Mark's family has run at northern Michigan local tracks since the 1970s.
Yep, it's a Chevy Big Block 454. It's a Chevy 327. It's a Chevy 230 Turbo Thrift Straight 6.
In some parts of the country where parts were maybe not super available, old school hot rodding and oval racing kinda was very lemony. People just used what they had, and in the case of the Howard family, they ran Novas with straight sixes with a custom intake on them. And when this straight six was done racing, they tossed it in a GMC pickup which hauled firewood for decades around their property till it was parked in the 90s.
Meanwhile, buzz-off Captain Mark had done some stage rally, but he really wanted to get into lemons. So back in 2019, he bought a Suzuki Esteem from Lemon's legendary team Bad Decisions Racing. He ran the Esteem once, killed the tiny little motor, and around that time, one of his teammates found a Drift Missile BMW E46 that was available.
Hey Nick, what is a drift missile?
Yeah, a drift missile is a real pile of that's drifted into every in the county and was from police impound in order to be into a Lemons car. So they picked up this drift missile and ran it a few times with the stock BMW engine. Eventually that developed a rod knock, so Mark rebuilt the bottom end, but then the Vanos stopped Vanosing. You know, Vanos, it's like the BMW version of Honda VTEC. Main difference being that Vanos bull doesn't work for shit.
During those couple races with the stock motor, Mark could never really shake the idea of pulling the old family 230 from the truck in his yard and letting his family's race engine power a race car again. And when the BMW engine blew a head gasket, he decided it was finally time to do that, and as Mark put it, nobody on the team tried to talk me out of it. What else am I supposed to do?
So what are the steps to putting a real inline six into a BMW? Well, first you gather all of the pieces. The engine they already had, it was in the truck in the yard. So Mark yanked that out and changed the oil for the first time in 40 years.
The problem of driveline then needed to be addressed. Mark said it would be way easier to weld a drive shaft than to build an adapter for Chevy to BMW, so he bought a Saginaw transmission off some dude in a grocery store parking lot. Now, buying an old 3-speed Saginaw from a dude in a grocery store parking lot is peak Michigan, and in fact, I'm kind of surprised he didn't buy it in the grocery store. You know, like the Meyer Thrifty Acres has Saginaws, in between the dog beds and a pallet of Golden Grams that fell off the truck. But I digress.
Once he had the engine and transmission, Mark made engine and transmission mounts out of 3/8-inch plate steel. The transmission got a circle track style twin stick shifter to fix the linkage issues with the Saginaw gearbox. What is it? This is not the first Lemons car in the Midwest that's had a twin stick to solve a shift linkage issue. We don't have that technology in California.
Whoa. Mark welded a GM drive shaft yoke directly onto the stock E46 drive shaft and nailed it on the first try. It worked perfectly. And then the final swap piece was the custom 2-barrel carb intake that his dad had hand-built in the 1970s for a circle track car. Put it all together and Mark figured the whole assembly made something like 130 crank horsepower.
Really, the only other modification for this setup was adding some 2.5-inch spring rubbers to the front coils to support the extra weight of the Turbo Thrift 6. And after a couple years of beating on this project, he was finally ready to debut the whole contraption at Lemons Road America in 2023.
Road America has a block party wherein teams drive from the track to downtown Elkhart Lake for BS inspection. On that drive, the BMW power steering pump blew a seal, leaving them without power steering because, of course, that BMW dropped everywhere and wouldn't turn at all anymore. And while a hassle driving at parade speed, Mark said it actually drove fine on the track without power steering. And in fact, the E46 chassis still handles mostly like a BMW, even if it has a gutless boat anchor in the front of it.
This engine has a true American rev limiter, by which I mean a crappy little carburetor that won't support any RPM beyond 4,500, which means they were pretty much out of revs on the front straight at Road America with this twin stick gearbox. This problem got worse when part of the twin stick failed on Saturday, leaving them without second gear, which meant trying to drive out of the slowest corners on the track in third gear at about 7 RPM.
It really wasn't performance that Mark was after. Really, he just wanted to get his dad's old racing engine back on the track, and it drew amazing reactions from everybody who saw the car with the hood off it. And in his words, we got to race with 140 some odd cars at Road America, which was a bucket list thing I didn't know I had.
We didn't see this car in 2024. Mark took the time to re-engineer some of the details, did some crank seals on the engine, adding a 4-barrel carb. He also wants to re-theme this thing as a 60s Trans Am Series Camaro. And we are definitely looking forward to that, and we can't wait until the next time when we see the Turbo Thrift BMW.
Every second you don't subscribe or watch one of these videos, another Vega is sent to the crusher. Won't you help us save Classic?